Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a concept we all think we know inside and out, justice. But according to a mind-bending essay by Schuyler Fiction, our entire foundation for it might be completely wrong. So let's see just how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Right out of the gate, fiction throws down this massive challenge. An illusion? How can that be? This one idea is really the key to the whole thing, suggesting that this thing we call justice might not be what we think it is at all.
All right, so let's pull on that thread, shall we? Is justice some kind of universal, divine law, or is it something we, humanity, just kind of made up? And if we did, well, couldn't it be flawed? Let's start with a really basic question. Think about gravity. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are on the planet, it works the same way all the time. But does justice work like that? Fiction's answer is a hard no, and that's our first big clue. See, unlike the laws of physics, what we consider just is all over the map. It's totally shaped by our culture, the language we use, and frankly, who's in charge at any given time. What we think is a fair punishment today could have been seen as completely barbaric 100 years ago, or the other way around. I mean, just look at this. For the exact same crime, stealing something, Society A says prison, Society B says dismemberment, and Society C says, you know what, go do some community service. And here's the kicker. Every single one of them would call their solution justice. So a fixed constant? Not even close. And this really gets to the heart of it. On the one hand, you've got natural laws. They are objective, they are universal. Fire always burns, period. But the laws of justice? They're subjective, they're cultural. They aren't something we discover out in the universe. They're something we create right here. And if the idea of justice is standing on shaky ground, then fairness is on even shakier ground. According to fiction, fairness isn't some grand principle of the cosmos. Nope, it's a deeply personal feeling that pops up when we start comparing what we have to what someone else has. It's basically the mathematics of envy, not a law of the universe. So if justice and fairness are really just our own inventions, what's the alternative? Where do we go from here? Well, this is where things get really fascinating. Fiction offers a whole new way to look at this, with a powerful metaphor from quantum physics, of all places. Okay, and this concept is the absolute key to everything. Coherence. In physics, it's used to describe a state of perfect unity, where everything is aligned and in harmony. Fiction grabs this idea and uses it as a metaphor for the ultimate state of being, a sort of divine, unbroken wholeness. And the opposite of that? It's called decoherence. That's when the perfect unity gets disrupted, when it collapses into pieces, into disorder. For fiction, this is what we experience as wrongdoing, as harm, as injustice. It's not breaking a rule, it's a disruption of harmony. And once you have this new lens, wow, you can look at old stories in a totally new way. Take the story of the fall in Genesis. Fiction argues it wasn't about a legal crime that deserved punishment. He says it was more like a metaphysical event, a phased transition from that perfect state of coherence into a fractured state of decoherence. Not sin, but a deep fracture in reality itself. Okay, so if wrongdoing is actually a state of fracture, decoherence, what does that mean for how we respond to it? Well, this brings us right to the heart of the problem, what fiction calls the punishment paradox. No, really? Just pause and think about this for a second. If the problem is a fracture, a break in the harmony, does it make any sense at all to try and fix it by creating a new wound, by inflicting another fracture? This is the fundamental question he poses to our entire way of thinking about justice. Because what we actually do, according to fiction, is start this tragic, vicious cycle. It goes like this. A crime happens. That's the first break. Our response, punishment, inflicts a new harm, creating more brokenness. That just breeds resentment, which deepens the original fracture, and the whole cycle of vengeance just repeats on and on. So here's the crucial point. When we demand punishment from a divine being, we are asking a perfectly coherent, whole and unified entity to act in a fractured, decoherent way. We are literally projecting our own broken cycle onto the divine and then calling it justice. It's a massive contradiction when you think about it. And look, this isn't just some abstract theological debate. Fiction argues that our deep obsession with justice and fairness, it comes at a huge personal cost. It actually makes us suffer. This quote really lays it on the line. It's a stark warning. The more we demand, the more we insist that the world bend to our personal idea of what's fair, the more we set ourselves up for pain when, inevitably, it doesn't. And that suffering is a heavy burden. We get fixated on wrongs that haven't been avenged. We get obsessed with making sure the guilty get punished. We literally poison our own minds with resentment. And all for what? For demanding perfect fairness from a universe that, according to fiction, never promised it to us in the first place. So, what's the way out of this trap? If the logic of justice is a paradox, what's the alternative? Fiction says we have to move beyond it entirely and embrace a completely different operating system, the logic of mercy. So let's quickly recap the system we're all used to. The logic of justice is reactive. It waits for something bad to happen, then it swoops in, tries to measure the harm, and balance the scales, usually by punishing someone. It's all about response and retribution. But now, look at the logic of mercy. It's a total 180. Mercy is proactive. It flows out of a state of wholeness, not reaction to brokenness. It doesn't need to compare or measure anything. Its goal isn't to balance scales, it's to restore harmony. It seeks to heal, not to punish. And this is so important to get. In this framework, mercy is not weakness. It's not about letting someone get away with it. It is, as Fishent calls it, coherence in action. It is an active, powerful force, maybe the only force, strong enough to actually break that cycle of vengeance and start healing the fracture. And we'll end on this final thought, which just perfectly ties it all together. To imagine the divine as a dispenser of justice is to lock our own human brokenness into the fabric of the universe forever. But to imagine the divine as a source of mercy is to allow for the possibility of real, true healing. The choice, it seems, is ours. Do we enshrine our wounds, or do we finally let them heal?